In this video, we're going to show you how to install a power steering pressure hose on your Cadillac Escalade located on the back side of the power steering pump. With the hood open, we're going to go ahead and locate the power steering pump. It's right here on the driver's side of the engine. We're going to go ahead and twist this cap counterclockwise and remove it and set it aside. Now you can see we have an empty container right beside it, and the purpose of this here is we're going to siphon out the power steering fluid as much as we can and put it into that container. Now the reason why we're doing this here is that when we disconnect the hose on the back side of the pump, we don't want to have all this fluid just leaking out all over the place. We are going to put a catch can underneath and some mats to catch any fluid that does run out. Yeah, we'll get a majority of that fluid out. Let's go ahead and remove the container. On the back side of our power steering pump is where our high pressure line goes to, and it's underneath the bracket on the back side of the power steering pump. Now there's a bolt for this bracket that goes to the side of the engine block, and then there are two nuts on studs on the back side of the pump itself. We're going to go ahead and loosen and remove these here. That's going to allow us to get a better angle on removing that threaded line from the back side of the pump. 15 mil socket. You got to remove that bolt. Remove that nut. Now the second nut is actually underneath the bracket on the back side of it. So we're going to use our small extension 15 mil socket. Get to remove that nut. So using our 16 millimeter wrench, I want to go ahead and loosen this. The best way to get this, once you break it free, if you wiggle the hose, the hard line, and you can reach around the backside and unthread it from the backside of the pump, and then wiggle that out and pop that line out like so. You're going to pull that up and around. So the line we're going to be replacing is this high pressure line on the bottom side here. This is covered in power steering fluid from it leaking. So what we want to do is we want to spray that and clean that as much as possible using a spray solvent. Make sure you're wearing safety glasses when doing something like this here. I'm just going to use a towel here to go ahead and clean this up. My goal is not to get any debris inside the rack when we disassemble this. Very important. There's a plastic cap right here. I want to slide this back. And we're going to twist that off. It's basically this little retaining clip. Right in the center here is a bolt we need to loosen. And this is a clamp for both the upper and the lower. And that is covered in debris as well. So we're going to go ahead and continue to use spray solvent to clean that up so it's easy to work with. Now right here in the center, there's a 5/16 bolt. We have two small extensions to try and get in there, and a shallow socket with a 1/4 inch ratchet. Make sure you have a catch can underneath, as there's probably going to be some residual fluid or power steering fluid in here. I'm going to go ahead and pop off this little plastic clip. This did fall off, so we want to clean this up before we reinstall it anyways. Now this bracket has a little notch in it for the upper hose to pop out of it. So I'm going to pop that out, grab this here, pull this up and out with the other hose. Now inside the rack here, there are 2 bushings. I'm going to use a small pocket screwdriver, and I'm going to go in and just gently pry this out. Now, as gentle with it, you don't want to score the inside of the rack. You're just going to get the inside of this here and pop that out. And what you're going to do is take the new bushing here, and there is power steering fluid in this port, so that should help it slide into place. So you want to kind of line that up and push that in a little bit. And you want to make sure that goes in further. So what you're going to do, ideally, you want to use a socket the same size. This here is a 3/8 1/4" deep socket, and that'll cover the perimeter of that seal. And then we're going to go ahead and tap that in. You're going to go ahead and do the same to the upper, pull that seal, and replace that one as well. Now on the fitting that goes to the back side of the power steering rack, there's this little opening right here, and it comes with an O-ring. You're simply going to slide the O-ring over and work that back a little bit. Now we're not going to install this portion yet. However, when we go to install this, you want to make sure that you have a coating of power steering fluid around that O-ring. It's going to help it seal and slide into place better. Right now we're just going to leave it dry until we can go ahead and get that installed. Before we install the other hose, you want to make sure that this other line here is clean of any debris. So just use a towel or rag, go ahead and clean that up. And take our new line here. Now sometimes once you get that in, you can go ahead and wiggle that back out. It kind of seats that seal. In our particular case, we're just replacing the lower one here. Just line that up. I'm going to get our bolt started. We'll thread that in as far as we can by hand. And then we'll use our ratchet and we'll tighten that down. And as we tighten that, it's going to pull these lines in and use that pressure there to seat those seals. You want to make sure that bolt is snug. You don't want to over tighten it. But what we're looking to do is make sure that bolt is snug and make sure that this flange for the new line we just installed sits flush up against the rack itself. Now, if you have the ability to do so, you want to get and torque this bolt down to 106 inch-pounds or 8.8 foot-pounds. Now we went ahead and cleaned our retainer clip here. We're going to just clip that onto the upper line, spin that around, clip it onto the bottom line, and then push it back. And that's it. We're going to install our bracket on the back here. Work that around onto the studs. The two nuts on the back of the power steering pump. Go ahead and take that hard line, and we want to just kind of feed that around to the back of the pump unit itself. And you want to reach out and get that nut inserted in and start that by hand. Get that started a few threads. And then once you get that started, we'll come back with our wrench and tighten that down. Now our bracket that we had just thrown the nuts onto, we want to go ahead and loosen that. We're going to need a little bit of flexibility out of this bracket to get our wrench on there for the hard line on the bottom. But go ahead and use that wrench there and go ahead and snug this down. I want to make sure that that is nice and tight. Go ahead and line your bracket back up. I'm going to install the horizontal bolt, get that lined up. Thread that in. Let's go ahead and reinstall these nuts for that bracket. Go ahead and snug down the bolt. Just going to use my gear wrench on this one here. Okay. Now that we have all three snug, let's go ahead and install the hose on the front of the pump. Now, in order to fill up the steering system properly, you want to go ahead and twist this cap counterclockwise, remove it. Now, on the dipstick itself is going to have a reading. It has add, which is this lower notch right here, and then up here it says hot at this notch. So we are completely empty. You want to use a clean funnel, place it right here, and you want to go ahead and fill this up just a little bit and then install the cap and then pull it back out. And you want to check this here. So what you want to do is probably get this to just above the A on the add section on the dipstick itself. And then you're going to go ahead and close this up after you remove that funnel. Now, after you have some fluid in there, you want to go ahead and jack up the front of the vehicle. This is going to be the best option. Jack up the front of the vehicle, start it up. Now it's going to whine. It's going to make some noise because there's air in the system, which is typical. At that point there, let it run a couple moments. Turn that steering wheel lock to lock, left to right, working that system. Then you can go ahead, open up this cap. It's okay to open it up. You're going to inspect it and find out where the level is. You want to go ahead and continuously add this up to the hot mark as the system warms up. Once you get to that point, keep on working that system, working the steering wheel left and right until all the whining and the noises are gone. It will foam up a little bit because of the air in the system. Once that quiets down, you want to go ahead and take the vehicle for a road test. And at that point there, you should be all set.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.